What's up? This is Christopher Thompson, and you're listening to Mega Talks. Welcome to episode 8. So I had a chance to sit down and speak with a friend of mine, fellow training partner in jiu-jitsu. His name is Chris Housenick. Last week we had a black belt conference up in Bentonville, and he was coming through the Fort Smith area. So we got a chance to sit down and talk a little bit about Van Halen, some guitar, talk a little bit about David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar. Have some good, interesting talk about political science too, since he's a professor, college professor of political science. And we also discuss some jiu-jitsu, naturally. And to take note, just to make some corrections right off the bat here, we talk about some song orders from the album 5150. We took our reference from a tablature book, so the songs were in a different type of order. So bear with us on that. Also, a guitarist name that I was trying to remember during the interview, his name is George Lynch. And we did have the opportunity to do a Facebook Live video, so if you're on my Facebook page, Mega Talks, we have a little excerpt from the interview there. Some of you, I know, have already watched that, but catch the full interview here. All right, this is Chris and Chris. We're both here talking on Mega Talks, and we're having a conversation here about Van Hagar and Van Halen. And as far as, you're not familiar with that debate, it's Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth and the changing of the guards, I call it, from the album 1984 and the 5150 album. Yep. Chris, you want to give some thoughts on?
Oh, they're good in different ways. I'm weird. In Van Halen circles, it's like a divorce. A lot of people are like, you can't like them both. Uh-huh. Pick one or the other. I do appreciate them both. Yeah. David Lee Roth is a front man, but Sammy Hagar is a musician. And I was lucky enough, I saw Van Halen on the Unlawful Carnal Knowledge tour, would have been October of 91.
No, was it 91?
When they started. That's when the album first came out. They toured, they did the Right Here, Right Now live. Uh-huh. I mean, they toured that album pretty hard for about 2 or 3 years. So I saw them, and it was honestly the best it's still my best and favorite concert ever.
It's Barton Coliseum.
I saw them in the Spectrum, Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Big show.
Loud show.
Yeah.
It's one of those old 70s arenas. And nice. We were on the second row of the upper deck right across from the where the bass cabinets were hanging. And
that
was the first concert I remember walking out where my ears were ringing.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So it was, but that was the tour where Sammy Hagar had all his own material. He was really comfortable singing. Uh-huh. He sort of had fully grown into it. And it was a 2.5-hour show that did not stop.
Nice.
So it was.
I've seen them twice, but I've seen them both with Sammy Hagar, and I've never seen them with David Lee Roth. Every time Roth came with them, I was, something
indisposed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw them with David Lee Roth. I guess it was Tulsa. It was maybe 5 years ago they came through. And it was a good show, but it's a different show.
He was a lot more calm, wasn't he, Roth?
Sammy Hagar always, every time I've seen him, I think I've seen Sammy Hagar 3 or 4 times. Mm-hmm. He always tries to sing, and the songs are as close to the album version as possible.
Yeah.
Not David Lee Roth.
Yeah, it's a new song every show.
It is. That's a good. I described it to my wife as it's a jam band.
Yeah.
At least the vocals. The band is tight.
Uh-huh.
They're going to do it. He sings most of the words on some songs, makes up some of his own on others. And sometimes, Tulsa was a great show. But I realize I'm seeing, the only time I saw David Lee Roth, he was in his 60s. So it's like, you got to put a little it's a little hard to compare.
No martial arts action from him on stage.
Much slower martial arts action. It was still there. I mean, for his age and all of their ages. It's when you realize your heroes are getting older. I think Sammy Hagar's birthday is right around when we're recording this, and he's turning 70.
Yeah.
I mean,
really old.
Yeah,
or older, let's say.
Yeah, but when comparing early 40s Sammy Hagar to 60 David Lee Roth, not exactly fair.
Yeah. So what did you think about 1984 was a powerful album when it first came out. I mean, a lot of hits, a lot of singles came off that, and that still stand the test of time today.
Oh, yeah.
What did you think about it, the first time you experienced it?
Everybody talks about what's the first album you really remember buying, and it was Van Halen's 1984 and Twisted Sister's Stay Hungry. And it was
a combination.
Yeah, a lot of people put thought into what music they like or whatever. It just clicked. There's just something about that album, 1984, just resonated, and I picked it up from there. Now, I have a confession. 1984 is a great album, but not my favorite Van Halen album.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. Mine is actually one of their older albums called Fair Warning.
Oh, okay.
If I ever get on Fight to Win, it starts off with the song Unchained is on that one. That's my walkout song.
Oh, yeah?
But it was, Fair Warning was their first 4 albums were all stylistically similar, all new material, all of them, if you read the liner notes, were recorded incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
But it was, those first 4 had this dirty kind of sound to it, much more raw.
It's more brown sound, what they call it.
Yep. Yeah. And that was, that album in general just really sort of clicked. They started polishing things. They had the Diver Down album, which was about half covers and had some half new material, and then really 1984 was the polished,
Oh yeah, studio, more larger sound, much larger sound, and more produced. I guess you could say that, little compressive sound.
Yeah, but it was Fair Warning. I think is still my favorite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just.
It's interesting because I don't really look at him as one of the best, but I have to go back to Van Halen 1 if I'm going to choose one, and it's because the way it hit me, and the first time I heard this Eruption from Eddie Van Halen, and I was already familiar with 1984 and stuff like that, but when I heard Eruption for the first time, I was in high school, and it was at a talent show, and it was just a recording, but the guy came out just as a filler while the judges, made their decision, and he pretended like he was playing the guitar, and that's the first time I heard it from beginning to end. And it's only like a minute.
Oh yeah.
But to me, it lasted 5-6 minutes because I was so in tune to what was playing through the speakers that it seemed like it lasted a lifetime to me. And I'm like, I gotta find that song. I gotta have that album.
Oh yeah. I know there was. Everybody talks about sort of guitar is not what it used to be. But it's I remember they've talked really Eddie Van Halen was the guy who reinvigorated guitar.
Yeah.
Because you had a lot of great guitar players of the 70s who were just aging, having issues. This is, your Eric Claptons and
Jimmy Page was getting,
Yeah, everybody's got to go clean and sober up and come back in the 90s. But, he comes out of nowhere in the early 80s, and everybody wants to, all of a sudden revolutionizes it, and you get, you got the Joe Satriani's coming out of it now, and all.
You got the spin-offs from the guys in Dawkins, and there's another guy I'm trying to think of. He used to play out in L.A. with Eddie, or they used to shadow them in their shows, and I think he opened a few shows. I can't remember his name right off the bat though.
I was thinking Kirk Hammett.
Oh yeah.
There's little bits and pieces, and especially one thing I learned about Kirk. He learned a lot note for note, sort of copycatting at first.
Now, have you seen, a little off the subject, but have you seen the Ouija board guitar from Kirk Hammett? They done a reissue just a few days ago.
Oh, I didn't catch the reissue, but I think I have. I've seen bits and pieces. I know he's got a lot of horror graphic design stuff going on.
The original one is white, But this one is like a kind of wooden color.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got the Ouija board print on there, and they're doing. I think it's like it's a limited run, like in '99 or something like that. Are going to be made, and they're like $10,000 a piece. And then there's a lower.
Let me write you a check.
Yeah, that's a lower LTD ESP that they're making, and they're making 666 of those, and they're right at $1,000. And that's, I mean, I don't think it has the active pickups, but I mean, to me they're nice guitars. It's beyond my, affordability though.
Oh yeah. I've wanted to buy one of the Wolfgangs for a while, and I've had the same problems.
The special or the?
Well, that's the problem. You can do okay. I've looked at. This is going back 15, almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. When they first came out, I was looking at getting like one of the Wolfgangs, sunburst color patterns, and you could get like the entry level, and you'd be still in like the $700 or $800 range. But they launch. All these new versions with, let's intentionally put a quarter underneath the bridge just so it looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
That quarter cost you an extra $1,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
I was always a big fan of those guitars, but, when I get past paying $1,000 for the guitar, it's just not something I want to do because I'm pretty hard on the guitars, and I'll tear them apart and I'll put them back together. And I don't want to spend that much money, and actually, I don't know, I feel like I'm tearing into something I shouldn't if it costs that much money.
Yeah.
But I've gotten $200 and $300 guitars and hot rodded them out, and spent a bit of money on them. Some of them are nice, and some of them are kind of they'll fall apart. But getting back to the 1984, just some things I was going to add on there is like David Lee Roth. We talked about the production of the album. Mm-hmm. We talked about that was the era. We talked about Kirk Hammett a little bit, and there was the video era was really big then. And they come out and had the Jump video. There's a few more videos from that album.
Jump, Panama, and Hot for Teacher.
Yeah.
I think was based. I was 12 at the time, and that was my formative years.
And then came Waldo.
Yeah. Well, back when MTV showed videos.
Yeah. And those were eye openers, and hearing Hot for Teacher for the first time and hearing the drums at the beginning of the song, you knew Alex could tear it up on drums. Mm-hmm. But just to hear the intro of that song, where I used to rewind the tape, just play it over and over, and it always sounded like a race car to me.
Mm-hmm.
I had friends of mine in high school. They had to turn the radio up and pretend like it was their car running.
That rumbling, dragster kind of sound.
It sounded like sloping.
Oh yeah, that was good.
But saying that Van Halen 1 was my favorite, I always go back to 1984 and 5150 because there were two powerful albums that were back to back for me, and there were two different singers. But you talked about Sammy Hagar versus David Lee Roth. I like them both, but man, when I pick favorite albums, it's got to be those two, just because it's two different singers. And 5150 is a little moniker I always took with me. Since then, because they're always a little bit crazy. If you're not a little bit crazy and walking on the edge, what exactly are you doing?
Oh yeah.
But
you're not going to find your comfort zone,
No.
or anything new and interesting staying right in your comfort zone. Definitely walk closer.
And when 5150 hit, it was Live Without a Net. You remember that video?
Oh yeah. I think I actually owned it on VHS.
Did you? Yeah, me too. And that thing wore out because I play the solo part right through the middle, and keep rewinding it right through where Eddie plays.
That's the funny. Seeing them even 5 years ago, they could still, as a band, pull that kind of power and music together. When you start, these guys, they're not quite as old as the Rolling Stones, but they're not. They're all, I think, way over 60. They're over 60 now.
Yeah.
And then they can, the slow. He doesn't do quite as much of the solos, but he's still doing, good chunks of it. So.
You can see style still changes as far as guitar preferences and that's.
He's like you were
Eddie.
Well, you were talking about. He's the ultimate tinker.
Yeah.
He's still taking apart guitars after 40-year, 50-year career, trying to get a little more sound or a little more whatever it is. Looking for always trying to change, evolve, whatever. But
And I notice his guitars now are a lot thicker. I mean, the body's a lot thicker. But I mean, just to watch him and the way he works, and as one tour, I know they went on, I forget which tour it was, where he tore up all of his guitars, and it was kind of the end of an era. At the last show, he smashed a bunch of them, and I was surprised to hear it.
the one thing I remember odd, I think it was 96 or 97. I can claim I've seen all the lineups of Van Halen. I saw the Gary Cherone.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. You go for Eddie.
Yeah.
And it was still a decent show, but Eddie was wired for that concert. I mean, we're all used to the radio packs and stuff like that, giving him the mobility, but he was fully doing chord run off the back of the guitar, off stage into amps and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So it's sort of an odd, production or technology gear choice.
Yeah.
For large amphitheater stage.
And I think it was Alltel Arena when I went, not AT&T, and I saw him there, and he was wired then. It's when he had that little wire coming out of the back of the car, coming straight out, whatever that thing was. I guess to keep him from pulling the cord out, but I don't know. That was one of the weirder errors to me, because the show was good, but there was a couple of things they were just different about it, because he added the sustainer and the guitar, and he was doing some tricks with the sustainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was some, again, he's always tinkering.
Man.
But
Going back to 5150, just walk through this one real quick, because I brought this down here. Because I was going to ask you what you thought of each song and just kind of step through here. And because that album starts out with Best of Both Worlds. And we talked about impacts of albums. And to me, when I first heard 5150 and I heard Best of Both Worlds, it was a really commercial song to start off the album with. But it left, I don't know, it kind of started here and rose as each song went. It got better as it went on.
yeah,
What did you think about it?
Best of Both Worlds was one. I don't know, even with 5150, they captured, like, I've seen it live a couple of times, and I think it's almost better live. There's something just something missing. Just the way they'll go almost Hagar and guitar to start.
Yeah.
Almost like a dueling back and forth, and then they crash into the rest of it. So it's a pretty good one, but it's like, I think you see that sometimes.
Yeah.
There's just a little something missing.
Yeah, because I thought the live one was a whole lot better. When I heard it live, Best of Both Worlds, I'm like, man, that song kicks live, but just on the record, it's kind of a little bit straightforward, a little tamed.
Yeah.
And then we go into Dreams, because the keyboard with Eddie kind of criticized for that, and some of the producers or some of the rumors in the band that nobody wanted the keyboards. But I was always a fan of keyboards, because coming as a musician, I've always wanted to play. I want to play keyboards and piano before I played guitar, and it's kind of where I started, playing some piano and stuff before guitar. So songs like Dreams, I actually liked them, even though it had a guitar in it, but it was primarily keyboard.
Yeah, a lot of piano work. I look at it as this is a point of like experimentation, expansion. Like you get little bits of it on 5150, but on OU812 they got into some real. There's some really I think OU812 is the most diverse album.
Yeah.
They got some Muddy Blues in there. They've got their version, their version of acoustical stuff like that.
Country.
You could just see they're sort of experimenting. Even if Dreams is an experiment, it worked.
Yeah.
The question always comes up is how do you play it live?
Oh yeah.
And I think because you see some bands have different ways of addressing that, and just Van Halen's always had the hidden fifth member on the keyboard stashed off stage somewhere. So.
Yeah, and to watch that on Live Without a Net, the Dreams didn't play that, and Sammy plays the guitar on it, and he kills it on guitar while Eddie's back there running actually, I think it's a synthesizer, not a keyboard.
Yeah, they said they showed some of that with the remake of One Way to Rock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they did one or two Sammy songs but with One Way to Rock, they're able to do double guitars. Sammy's both singing and playing basically rhythm guitar, and Eddie's playing a track, his version over top of it. And it took a pretty decent song and made it a lot more powerful.
Yeah, that was really intense.
Yeah, that layering ideas. I think it's a trick when you're in a band like Van Halen because you only have one guitar. There's only so much. I mean, he can do a lot, but it's not like somebody like a Metallica where you're set up with two guitars. And you can lay a really solid bass down and work around. Even get two different kinds of rhythms going.
Yeah. And they follow up with "Why Can't This Be Love?" And it goes back to what I was saying. The album seems like it starts slow and then it just keeps getting better. But they chose the third and fourth slot in there to put kind of slower songs, kind of ballady songs. What do you think about that one? I'll tell you my thoughts on it after you.
Well, we're about the same age, and everybody was doing ballads, and I think those were, they're ballads, but they're some of the better ones of the era. I mean, there's, if you go back, there's some Poison and some Warrant, and do we need to say Winger?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were vaguely kind of maybe cool back in, 88 or 89, but everybody was putting ballads out, and I think, they still, they've held up fairly well. It's one of those, you start hearing some of those other bands, just like Click, I didn't know you still existed, and you start changing the dial, but I think...
When I first heard the song, and I'm the type where I'll listen to music and I'll never know the words of a song. I'll hear the music first, and then it may be years later before I ever hear lyrics in some of the songs, but when I first heard that song, it sounded like an Evil song, and I used to hear, when they were coming to Little Rock and touring, I would see the commercials on TV about Van Halen coming, and this is a song that they would play in the commercials, and they played the little intro before the solo where where Sammy's singing along with the guitar, and I thought the whole song was just an Evil song when I first heard it. I didn't listen to the lyrics; I was listening to the music, and later when I hear the lyrics, it doesn't have that Evil sound. But I think if you take away the lyrics and just add in his singing along with the guitar and you just listen to the song, it's got a really evil sound to it with that and the keyboard when it first comes in.
I gotta think about that now.
Really? Because it comes in with the
yeah,
and then it comes straight into like this wicked evil sounding keyboard. I don't know, it always does.
It'd be one. I could see it if you drop it, detune it.
Yeah.
Take it down a half step, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
I could see that. That makes sense.
That's just the impression that the song always gave me. But I don't know, something weird.
Yeah.
But how you go, the Love Walks In, another ballad there. But I mean, that one, I like the song, but it's your standard ballad. I like the guitar in the song.
Yeah.
It's the style of it. When I looked at it, and when I'm in my bedroom trying to play this stuff, it was something that was different for me to try and play because there's a lot of sliding in and
That's something with his style. He jumps places on the guitar.
Yeah.
I've noticed. It's like, let's suddenly go an octave and a half higher.
Yeah.
So it's, there's, you follow some people, like my wife is a huge Fish fan. And Trey Anastasio is big on arpeggios. Once you learn those, you can kind of figure that's how he puts a lot of this stuff together in many of his songs. And this is like, nah, you're playing down near the, not near the head of the guitar. Nope, we're gonna go right up to the top.
Take it to where it needs to be.
Yep.
And then we have the title track 5150, and
that's a really good one.
Yeah. And it's one
it's underappreciated. Like you were saying, Why Can't This Be Love? Love Walks In, Dreams. Those were like the video songs of the album. Yeah, they were on MTV. They were the ones being promoted heavily. But 5150 never got that treatment. But it's
and you wonder why those songs came first. But to me, the rest of the album after 5150 is like, wow, this is the crazy side of the album.
I had the same reaction about their most recent album.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Different Kind of Truth is really good past the first song, past the first track, and the first track was the one, it was Tattoo.
Oh, really?
That's the first one, and once you're past that, it's a really good, funky, much more bare bones band style album.
Yeah.
A lot of really good songs. They a lot fewer synthesizers, a lot less of the later guitar approach. But it was the same thing. Like Tattoos, it's grown on me. But Growing on Me has got it too. It's an okay song.
Yeah.
But it's a strange choice to say this is the first. Let's put this out there in front. When there were a lot of other songs that were really had a better groove.
Hard hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch the on YouTube where Roth talked about each song?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
I've watched those, but I like to hear Roth and his approach to different things and why he does certain things that he does.
Yeah, he's so. But
and next song we hit of is Inside.
that's the last. It's almost like the throwaway. It's got a really kind of funky beat at the beginning.
Yeah.
But it's it's a good rhythm that they just never put much to it.
Have they ever done that live? Do you know?
Not that I know of, because it's
okay.
not. It's them just sort of almost talking over it.
Yeah.
This is
It's like a rap song.
vaguely, yeah. It's sort of like Sammy Hagar saying, "Look, I know I'm not David Lee Roth. I'm doing my own thing." And you get some of the booth band banter back and forth.
Yeah. I'd like to hear more about the inner workings or how that song came about, and I've never heard anybody speak of it.
No,
But when it's named Inside, it kind of gives you a view inside of what was actually going on with the band behind the scenes. And when you listen to some of Sammy's interviews, he talks about how he stepped in and things were, they were pretty crazy.
oh yeah,
With the things they were doing, things that went on in the studios, and just the band all together. Even, who is it? Bass player from Metallica. Not former bass player. Oh, Jason Newsted. If you listen to some of his...
I was gonna say Cliff Burton.
Oh, no. Jason, if you listen to some of his interviews, he talks about going on tour with some of these guys and how it was really a wild show. You think they're tame, but he said he learned everything not to do from touring with these guys.
Oh yeah,
But I think Inside gives you that inside look of what was actually going on during that time.
well, the music industry's always been rough.
Yeah.
And like you said, I just saw it maybe a week ago. Van Halen had one of the top 20 largest albums of the 70s. With Van Halen, their debut made 10 million. One of the largest albums of the 80s was 1984.
Yeah.
And now you have to replace, your lead singer. So it's like you've hit the pinnacle. You're as big as you can get, and now we have to try and find somebody you have to be half insane to step into that, because our last album just sold 10 million copies. Let's find somebody to try and keep that up. Good luck.
And I think some of this order is not the order they appear on the album, but just how we're addressing them. But going back to Good Enough, and I think this is the one they actually open the album with, not Best of Both Worlds, but at the beginning you hear Hello Baby, and to me that's infamous.
Oh yeah.
That's something that I don't know. If I need a sound clip just to play at random.
But no, I think it works, for the era. Nowadays, I think we're all spoiled. We got the internet. Every time anybody in a band says something bad about somebody else or the movings or whatever. But I can, if you didn't watch MTV News, you're not going to have, that's about the only context you would ever get of, oh, by the way, David Lee Roth is quit or got fired, depending on which side you fall into. Yeah. Here's a new song. Here comes the new album. And all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, there is somebody new doing the singing. So.
And I don't even, I get MTV, but I don't watch it.
I cannot tell you the last time I watched MTV.
Somebody said something about TRL the other day, and I didn't know TRL was still a show.
Oh. That was big even after I got away from MTV. I want to say like TRL was probably big in the early 90s.
Yeah. I used to I would catch it every now and then, and that was I guess you say the more commercial rock rap era when, you know, we had Limp Bizkit, Korn, and those guys coming in after the Blink and Britney Spears era. And
Yeah.
That's when I was more hip to it.
That started when I got out of the Army and back into college. That's when I really remember it. That was about 96. You know, I came back and 311 was everywhere.
Oh, yeah?
That's what I really sort of remember for hearing that. I remember, Anthrax and Public Enemy getting together, those sort of combinations. But it was a much more prevalent once I got, back to Pennsylvania, back, the mid '90s.
I don't know.
So, but
Hit these last two, Summer Nights and Get Up.
Summer Nights is a good, just sort of relaxing. It covers the mood. I mean, that's the. I joke. Sammy Hagar is who I hope to age like.
Oh yeah.
I mean, how many rock stars get weird plastic surgery, and start looking just the Wayne Newton look? He's 107 years old and his face doesn't move anymore. But as far as aging goes, part of it is. I mean, he is a professional beach bum.
That song always reminded me of a country song. I kind of like country lyrics or something. It reminds me of an Alan Jackson song.
Oh, I could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Summer Nights, my radio. Oh, yes. It turned to pickup trucks and stuff like that. But Get Up's a really good song. That's a good, get fired up song.
That's a good jam song, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a frantic kind of pace to it.
When I was, cutting my teeth on guitar, this is one of the albums I just played over and over. And when it came to Get Up, it was one for a while I began to skip because he had the lay on the whammy bar the whole song, and I had an old Kramer and I was wearing that Kramer out. And if you're not familiar with the Kramer, the tops of them, a lot of them that I had, the top was plywood, and the bottom was a solid guitar, but the plywood
you start straight, you're yanking on that
the
whammy bar and just start bowing the whole guitar.
I started pulling out, and that song, or the guitar finally got really old, and I had to tune that guitar down to a whole step before it whole tuned. So it wound up being my lower tuned guitar for a long time.
Your Slayer guitar.
Yeah, playing Slayer
or
playing
open detuned.
Yeah, it was Motley Crue. Played a lot of Motley Crue. Played Korn without the seventh string.
There you go. But yeah, that Get Up really, it starts with the kind of the frantic guitar, and then everything else blasts in behind it. It's that same kind of tune and feel that you get with Unchained, where where you start with the guitar, and then all of a sudden it's like here comes everything else, and this one, big explosion of sound behind it.
And
that's
the guitar solo in there is. Did you ever play along?
Tried.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Wide intervals.
Oh yes, I did a couple. It was a college thing. I still have guitars. I practiced, about 3 years or so, 4 years. The best I ever got with any Van Halen songs is acoustical, doing "Finish What You Started."
Really?
Yeah, because if my suggestion for people learning guitar, if there's a technique you want to learn, you find a song that uses it almost exclusively. And then you learn that song, and that's what's going to help you. And it was an acoustical song, learning to finger pick.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that, what I realized, my guitar teacher at the time and I were showing,
Starting a live video.
There's the trick, he doesn't do the same thing every time. He'll be sitting there and he's got about 8, 10, maybe 12 different flourishes, chord combinations that he picks through, and he's almost like randomly picking them. So
in the solo of the,
or just in the body.
Oh, okay.
That dun 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 dun, but there's all these little variations he's doing throughout. So it's like learning to be able to identify those and what to use where.
Yeah, I think that was some of my first experience of actually trying to chicken pick. I heard it in country music a lot, but it's something I never tried to imitate when I was playing guitar until, of course, Eddie does it and everybody else has to do it. But watching Hee Haw is, was one of my influential TV shows growing up. And
I remember Hee Haw.
Yeah. But that country lick, took me back, and something I just can't do, something I still practice, but I can't do it well.
No, the rhythm of that it was always, because it's country picked, but it's almost like a swing rhythm.
Yeah, with the pull-offs.
Yeah, but it's not that perfect monotone. Let me get my, and it's just I never got the feel behind it. And that's sort of what's always missing. That's what makes when you're doing something, there's knowing it technically and getting well under the hood, and that's the part I never really I never achieved.
Oh yeah. If I start the Facebook Live, I don't know if anybody's on there. I probably need to turn the camera on, but y'all can comment or whatever. But here with my friend Chris Housenick, we've been talking about Van Halen, been talking about a lot of guitar. Just having a good conversation with my friend here before we hit a weekend of jiu-jitsu together.
Yep. Black belt camp.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
But I've done the fun thing is I've done a lot of jiu-jitsu tourism. I have a great wife. I travel a little bit for work, for family things and stuff like that. My wife's great. My gi is in the car. I got a no-gi kit with me.
Ready to go.
I've traveled a lot in Pennsylvania because what we do is every summer we do 2 weeks to go visit family.
Yeah.
We do a week in eastern Pennsylvania. We do a couple of days in central, then about a week in western to see both our families.
Oh, nice.
But I found places. Reading, Pennsylvania, it was Berks County Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
Great place. Again, it's close to my parents. I went to grad school in State College, so we see some friends there. That is Central Pennsylvania Mixed Martial Arts. That place is interesting because that's when I discovered how small the world of jiu-jitsu can be. There was a guy who started learning jiu-jitsu in Central Pennsylvania, this academy, probably 10 years ago, and he moved for work.
I'm just going to turn this around.
He moved for work, jobs, etc. His name is Tony Mathers.
Oh, okay.
And now he's living and working up in the greater Fayetteville area. And the guy, one of the coaches at Central PA Mixed Martial Arts was one of the guys training with Tony. And at the time they were both, this would have been, I guess it was 2 years ago the last time I saw them directly, but they were both brown belts about the same time. They started, when you go, hey, I know him in Arkansas, you're like, wow, this is a small universe. And then my wife's from the Pittsburgh area. I've hit a couple of schools out there. We hit, it's called Stout Training Pittsburgh, Warren Stout, that's downtown. And then there's High Ground Jiu-Jitsu, Tommy Costa, he's out in Delmont. He's in the far sort of easternmost suburbs of Pittsburgh. And then, so that's my Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I went for a professional conference to Chicago, and I'll probably put Redsvik.
Yeah.
A great guy, right there in the downtown Chicago. I drive all these distances.
But we have a couple of guys that train here with us that are from the same gym. Or I don't know if they train with them. You said Chicago, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where they're from. But they're here, temporarily working pipeline and stuff. So they come in and they're great guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, all of these places that I've gone, I've been really lucky. Great atmosphere. They don't care that you're off the street. Yeah, they're like, somebody new to train with.
Oh yeah.
Because it's great for them and it's great for me because you get to see different styles, different approaches.
You were born in?
I'm born in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
The accent should probably give it away.
And how did you become into doing, let's say, jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu's right.
Yeah.
Basically, I got, I guess it would have been fall of 2009. I started at Arkansas Tech University. And my youngest was born in 2010, and when she was about not quite a year old, things had settled down to a good degree, and I knew I needed a hobby. I needed something outside. I recognized that the best thing for your psyche is you got to have a hobby that you can get fully embraced in.
Take your mind away from.
Exactly, and it turns out Brian Wilson was one of our professors and coaches. He was actually a student worker in my department.
Oh, okay.
and he was teaching. Jeff Woods at the time was our department head. He's another, I think he's another purple belt at my gym at this point. But Brian was working out of the back of another gym doing, and I said, all right, let's try it.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a little bit weird because I was a slow roller into
jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu wasn't your first martial art, was it?
I did some Taekwondo when I was in the Army. I don't think it was conscious, but I think part of me recognized I need something that gets me out of the barracks, away from the Army lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I did 7-8 months of Taekwondo. I think I was about ready for. I'm not sure if I tested for my green belt or I was ready to test for it, but
Because I remember you coming into class, and I remember meeting you there at Bronze, and one of the first things I thought when we rolled or sparred or whatever is like he's jiu-jitsu can't be his first martial arts because he's still new and he's been in here a few weeks and he's doing better than your average person that comes in and does jiu-jitsu for the first time.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking.
Yeah.
I think for me, I was never. There's a lot of different people who come into jiu-jitsu gyms.
Yeah.
And I think we all have to get over our hang-ups. And I think, because the one I always run into, I help teach kids classes, I do adult introductory lessons, I think you've probably seen this.
Yeah.
They want to do jiu-jitsu, but they're afraid to touch one another.
Yeah.
There's some, and there's...
Got to get over that
yeah, I don't think I had that much of that to get over, but, I started doing... I think when I first started, I would do private lessons once a week, and then Brian opened his first location. This is Forza 1.0 that
out there by what was Pickwood, I guess.
Yeah. But once he opened there, I was doing classes once a week, and then eventually, schedules I was doing twice a week. Where I think that's just what worked with my schedules at the time. So it was a little bit of a slow build into it.
Yeah.
But I was looking. It's been 4 years since my first competition.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's funny. The Facebook reminders, and here's. It's a great picture, though. It's you were actually there. I remember it was AGF out in Tulsa.
Was it?
And it's a lot of our first tournaments. AGF's coming to Tulsa. We drove up, but it's me, my wife, and my 2 daughters.
Yeah.
We got a picture of all of us on the podium.
I remember seeing the picture.
Yeah, I just shared it, I think it was yesterday, and it was like, wow, has that been 4 years ago already? Yeah. So it's been, but yeah.
It flies.
Yeah. You start thinking about, I think, time flies, but you also get a different perspective. I got my purple belt February of this year, of 2017. Well, people asking, well, when you belt up again? And I look up with a straight face, sometime in 2020.
Oh, yeah. Whenever the time comes, who knows?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm on this ride.
Exactly. People, there can be, especially, early on, there's that kind of that impatience. It's like, you'll get there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll get there when I get there. But it's, you have to embrace people are going to learn differently and approach it differently. And the faster you can really believe it, not just say it, the healthier you're going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that for me was, just I learned a little bit slower, especially I learned technically pretty quickly, and I could teach it back pretty quickly. But using it against a resisting, irate opponent,
the application is always different from the knowledge that you obtain.
Exactly.
Because there's some things I've learned that just, in a situation, you just can't do it.
Oh no, yeah, there's.
But you always keep working.
Inverted guard. No, ain't happening. Sorry, not yet. Not in the wheelhouse.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean that's where I sort of started and been doing. Yeah, I think I just passed grappling 6 years. So.
That's nice because some people get into it, grappling, jiu-jitsu, those type of arts. The progression is much slower progression because you can get into something like a Kempo, karate, or taekwondo or something, and you're going to move at a general rate. If you're still steady with your training, but you're going to move along a whole lot faster because of the way the systems are set up. Jiu-jitsu systems can be quick, but they can also be really slow. And I think
I also think they're uneven. You have breakthroughs or you hit plateaus, and I think that is normal.
I call them peaks and valleys.
Oh yeah, but I was when I was up in Chicago, I was talking to Red Civic and some of his guys. The reality is, once I got my blue belt to purple belt, I was a month shy of 3 years. I wasn't really doing anything new. My game was still pretty much my game, but you're doing everything with more details and better.
More consciousness and awareness.
Well, you've tightened up things.
Yeah.
And I always say, a white belt knows 5 details, the black belt knows 50.
Yeah.
And when you start when you get the blue belt, you're going to know 10, and you're really I'm not changing how I play, but those details are tighter. I'm looking for that timing thing, or people to make certain mistakes, and
patience has gotten better.
Oh, it had to. I mean, I laughed. Denny Drang was at my I was at my rank review. I just got my blue belt, and he's like, "Doing good technically. You got to learn how to breathe." And I would say it probably took me another 6 months to a year, and a lot of just rolling to be able to really to understand just relaxing and.
Because I think I was that way at blue. I was more fidgety, wanted to be speedier, and more on the impatient side. And once I learned to dial those things back and be more selective and relax a little bit more, it's like light bulbs just started coming on left and right. And I'm like, it's not as hard as what I thought it was going to be.
No. Part of it for me is we had a lot of guys who are quicker, faster, and I got comfortable with just, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
If you want to, bull rush, speed rush, and get me inside control, okay.
Uh-huh.
I know my escape game from over here just as well as anywhere else.
Yeah.
So it's, you got to sort of embrace that, things are going to be, you're going to wind up in bad positions, you're, going to get submitted. White belts might still get you once in a while.
Uh-huh.
I still have that problem, but we got some big, a big new dude.
Football player.
Yes.
I saw a picture.
Oh, it's...
The picture was him and Andy next to each other, so...
Yes, 6'10" and 5'6". But there's, we joke about it, it's a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain... You have to be... full guard is completely and totally out of the question.
Sure.
Half guard is your best friend, but it's half guard for dear life.
Uh-huh.
And what I realized is from half guard, the trick is really keep my arms in nice and tight.
Oh, against him?
Yeah, because that's what happened. I mean, he's good. He is going to be dangerous probably, and I give him about 6 more months. Because he's cognizant of how big and strong he is, and he's trying to build a finesse game.
Shoot.
Like there's a video, I think it's Henner Gracie with Tamba Hali. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs for a long time, and I think Henner called him like the slowest blue belt ever, because he gets to train like basically in the off season 3 or 4 months a year. But it was the same thing. He moves incredibly smoothly, like in top position for somebody who is probably, I think Tamba Hali's 6'5", 6'6", and 260, 270. But the trick is, like, he is so tall, he can reach around. Like, I have him in half guard, and he was able to pry an arm free. My top arm free, which nobody who's on my own height, that's not an option. Although, my experience, I don't actually worry about weight. I've had more problems with long people.
You reach around and grab that lapel.
Or just, there's something about that reach, like my very first grappling tournament ever. One of our friends, Stephen Gorley, put it on, and there was a joke. He was a volleyball player almost, because I was, I'm 5'9", about 215, and it's funny when you see the pictures. He was probably 6'9" and 190 pounds.
Wow.
He was this really, really lanky though. But he trained. He was a white belt in jiu-jitsu, but he had trained like judo or something. And when you don't realize you're in trouble, you're used to, okay, you're about my size, keep my arm out and we've touched fingertips and
Yeah.
I've entered the danger zone or anything like that. No, you are in so much trouble, so much further out than you recognize.
You know how to close the distance.
Oh, he closed it. He knew exactly. He closed that distance very quickly, and you just didn't quite recognize it. And I've seen that before. We've got Aaron MacArthur is one of our other coaches. He was a collegiate wrestler, and he's 6'6", 6'7", and the challenge with him has always been that distance. He is that height. He can cover so much ground quickly, and more quickly for his size. When you're 6'5", 6'6", and 3 bills, you kind of expect him to be a little bit slower. No, he can cover that ground.
Got plenty more leverage too, being that tall.
Oh yeah.
So I find the taller guys is just, even if you can get to the top, it's still a different monster to deal with. If you got to get past the guard, and if you let them get knee shield, just working out that distance is going to be a tough thing.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Trying to figure out. I'm working on my pressure game. My usual game is I want to slow the pace down.
Yeah.
I think Rafael Lovato Jr.'s sort of what I see. You know exactly what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to
pressure and pass.
Pressure, pass, mount, X choke, and you're done.
Yeah.
He might as well sew it to his gi. Everybody knows what he's going to do, but he's so good at it, and he keeps so much pressure that he just imposes his will.
Yeah.
And I think, but it's, when you're rolling against somebody, getting that top pressure, being able to hold and maintain is tricky, is tough. Especially, I'm sort of I recognize I'm in a weird weight category.
Kind of half and half.
Well, I think there's a lot of guys who will really get serious, cut down. Like, I even look at IBJJF brackets and all of them, and I'm a middle heavy. That's about 190 to 205. There's a lot of people will cut down. They'll just go down to middle, get down to the 180s. Or they're like, okay, let myself go. And you wind up in the heavyweights or super heavies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All tournaments, you look in California,
Is there a weight class that's not just standard one? I don't think 135, 145, stuff like that. It's like in between. Because I think the last one I went in is 168. That's where I had to be.
Yeah, it's. But I look like IBJ, senior worlds. Middleweight, there's 65 competitors my age. Middle heavy, there's 5.
Yeah.
And then heavy, there's 37, and super heavies, there's so I'm in a weird category. I said I enjoy competing. It's it can be a little tricky though. We get a lot of Oklahoma competition, I noticed.
Yeah. And
in my category, it's a lot of these 5'7", 200-pound ex-high school wrestler roughnecks in the oil fields. I mean, they're great. I had one match I lost. I think it was 5-0, but it was the strangest thing. Great guy, had great takedowns.
Yeah.
But I was able to escape. Literally in a 5-minute match, he got 3 takedowns. We got back up twice, and then he controlled and passed guard the third time.
He's just used to doing all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me how many people retain that stuff. It may take off a couple of years, and I see that actually a lot when I go back to Pennsylvania. Wrestling is huge back there, and you get, hey, I wrestled in high school. I did this. I've been shooting singles or doubles from 15 to 17, and I've never forgotten it.
Yeah.
And then they get into jiu-jitsu in their 30s or whatever, and it's still in there.
That's the benefits of having another art before you at least go into jiu-jitsu or learn it, at the same time. Because I didn't have a ground art. I had a standing art, but it still helped me in some ways as far as the movement and, just being able to take a little bit of abuse.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the fun parts about being a little bit older. We don't quite bounce back as fast.
Got to kind of slow things down just a little bit. Did you compete any at IBJJF yet?
No, I haven't. I've competed on the local circuit. As we said, we had AGF came to Tulsa. They were the first. For a long time, they were the only show in town.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry. Naga was the first. AGF is coming to Arkansas a lot.
Yeah.
I've competed, I want to say 2 or 3 of theirs now. 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, because I'll be in Conway next weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is Jiu-Jitsu month.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I got a work commitment, so I won't be able to be there for it.
Oh, really?
But yeah, AGF, that was from where I'm at, Tulsa's 3 solid hours.
Yeah.
Each way.
Uh-huh.
So, and 65 to enter one division, plus drive up, drive back.
'Cause we stopped doing the Oklahoma City because it was so early in the morning because you had the younger kids.
Oh, yeah.
The 3-hour drive, so it's right on the...
We did Tulsa last June for AGF. Me and my 2 daughters went.
Mm-hmm.
And I would not have even attempted to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
We got a hotel room up there because I think both of mine had to be like ready to go grapple at 7:45 in the morning.
Shoot.
And the doors open like 7:15, and they did a great job of getting everybody in and through.
Uh-huh.
But it was it's the logistics. Conway is 45 minutes door to door from my house.
Yeah.
So it's
much better.
Yep.
Especially with the kiddos going so early.
Yeah.
I will. Let's get into another subject. We talk about some Van Halen, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and kind of move on to the next one. There's some stuff I want to ask you about, but as college professor.
Oh boy.
And you talk about you born in Pennsylvania and making it down to Arkansas. What transpired between graduating high school and moving from Pennsylvania to being the college professor and the choice of the field? Kind of a broad question, but...
No. I graduated high school in 1990. My first attempt at college, I was actually an engineering major. And a lot's changed in higher education in more than 25 years. A lot of it, when I first started in engineering, it was the courses and program were designed to weed people out. Mm-hmm. It's not that they weren't smart people or hardworking, but they're smart and there's engineering smart.
Yeah.
And I did okay my first semester, but the second semester really is when you get that big step up. Mm-hmm. I still have the horror stories I tell. Like I had a exam. It was second semester physics. And the question was something to the effect of, what is the gravitational attraction of 2 helium atoms 1,000,000 miles apart? And it's a 30-year exam grade. Uh-huh. And you got to show all this work, and that was sort of a big eye-opener. Mm-hmm. But I did a year. I did okay, but I wasn't really in love with being an engineer. I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So at that point, I decided to join the Army. Take some time off, find myself. I left December 26th of 1991, day after Christmas. Now, I signed up in July, so that was a pretty long time to hang out. But then I spent 4 years. I got out in February of 1996, and I went back to college. I went to Slippery Rock University. Mm-hmm. So I started at Slippery Rock in August of 96. The good news is my first attempt at engineering, all my math and sciences transferred.
Oh, that's good. That can be a pain, transferring things.
It's tricky now. I don't even want to think of what it was like back then.
Yeah.
But part of being in the military got me interested in government and politics. Because, military is designed to finish problems through force, through violence. Mm-hmm. And I got interested I knew what the entry-level, grunt-level version of that is. I got interested in, what's the politicians, what's the elected official, what's the Secretary of Defense's role in that discussion, too? So I went back for political science the second to get my major. I finished in 3 years, so I graduated Slippery Rock in May of 99. And I still had a little bit of GI Bill left, so I started at Penn State. Now, I chose Penn State because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but Penn State was one of the schools where they had split master's and PhD programs. A lot of places, if you get accepted to grad school, you may be in for like 4 or 5 automatic years to your PhD. I was there for 6, but the first 2 were just my masters. And I have a few friends who they liked it. They finished their masters, and that was good for them. But so I was there for 6 years, got my doctorate, and then I started. My first job was American University, Washington D.C.
You moved along pretty fast.
6 was pretty typical for us.
Was it?
Yeah, it's. You could finish faster. Part of it was always job markets. There's a very clear kind of sequence for hiring in higher ed.
Yeah.
So.
Because it seems like now people that go 6 years are just.
Well,
they're just now getting masters.
Oh, it depends on the discipline. Like I know your sister, my wife, they work in English. Mm-hmm. I know a whole bunch of people who would go. They might have their master's degrees. They may be on the road to it. Like I have a friend who took like 10 years to get an English dissertation.
Wow.
But part of it is so they can, with a master's degree, they can get hired almost like full-time teaching places.
Yeah.
So it's and not really get paid much to finish. Mm-hmm. So it becomes like, well, what's the advantage if I actually go and do it?
Yeah.
But I did 4 years in American University. It was a renewable temporary job. But then I was applying, and part of it is for many college professors, you apply nationwide. There's just not, you can't be too picky. So you will, I would tell my wife, hey, send out 5 applications today, send 6 applications, etc. And I would say it was Christmas, either December or January. It would have been 2008 to 2009. I got an email from Arkansas Tech, wanting to set up a phone interview. So that was, my wife had, I had this 5-minute conversation. She's like, Arkansas Tech, because I don't want to waste anybody's time.
Yeah.
And so Arkansas Tech calls. If I take the phone interview, we're at least obligated to get down into, if they say, hey, we want to bring you to campus, is this something we're serious about? And she was like, yes.
Serious enough
and we were both
make the trip.
Yeah, it's, but I had the phone interview. Then we had, it was Valentine's Day weekend of 2009. So I wound up flying out for the interview, did the interview. I got back, and I'd say Wednesday or Thursday after the interview, I got an email setting up negotiations to bring me down. Yep. Nice. And then we moved to Russellville, Arkansas in August of 2009. Uh-huh. Very Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh yeah.
Yep. We got
load it up and go.
Well, we got a moving truck, but we brought some of our little stuff with us. The really stuff we want to make sure that got taken care of. But we got like a you rent a U-Haul. Uh-huh. It was like this 1950s. Yeah, I mean this thing was old.
Dude.
Yeah, and old, small.
Just make it through the hills.
We looked so out of place. We're pulling out like we're in the Maryland suburbs. We're passing through DC Beltway, and you're getting Lexus goes flying by, a Porsche SUV goes flying by, and there we are. It's a Kia sedan pulling this old trailer.
Oh yeah.
And we looked so Beverly Hillbillies. We had it was trying to think. My wife was in the back seat because we had only had our oldest daughter, so she would have been about 18, almost not quite 2 yet. Mm-hmm. I had 2 cat carriers up in the passenger seat, the trunk's full, and it was just so.
You have the bare necessities.
Yeah.
The kids and the animals.
Well, the part of it was we actually the smartest thing, we hired movers.
Oh yeah, that's good.
But when it's weird when they tell you when you hire movers, they give you such a crazy date when you're doing a long distance move, because they tell you there's 2 or 3 different moves that are going to be on your tractor trailer.
And, I didn't know that.
Well,
that's like carrying cars.
Yeah, so they tell you your stuff will be there in 7 days to 22 days or something like that. And so
You're lucky it was summertime.
But we lucked out. It was only like 9.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those, let's pad our time. Mm-hmm. But I think door to door, our stuff was only gone for a week. But it's, there's just certain things you don't want to, leave to strangers. Like we had a fire safe with like, our marriage licenses and birth certificates. Like you want to hang on to that, and enough clothes to get you through until they show up. And you've got a 2-year-old, all the hardware you need to keep them happy. Booster seats and everything like that. So, and that started 2 days in the car from Maryland down to Russellville. Because you can't really.
Yeah, you can't cover a whole lot of ground with the kids,
Well, I can now. My kids are used to the drives, so they are great at long distance driving.
Are they?
Yeah, because when we go to Pennsylvania, I think usually it's 2,600 or 2,700 miles till it's all said and done.
Yeah.
We had our best one. We come back from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh to Russellville, Arkansas is almost exactly 1,000 miles, and we do that one day.
Yeah.
We got up in Pittsburgh. We leave about 7:30 in the morning. We got in my front door in Russellville at 10:45 at night, Russellville time.
Sure.
But the kids are great. But part of it is they're used to it.
Which way do you go? Down the I-40?
Eventually. To Pittsburgh, you're cutting across. From Pittsburgh, you're going through the heart of Ohio.
Oh, you do?
You're coming down. You cut down to Cincinnati. Once you're in Cincinnati, you're going down into Louisville. And then I think it's Louisville. You get on I-64 north and south. That will drop you down into Nashville.
Yeah.
And Nashville, once you're in Nashville, it's all I-40.
Mm-hmm. I think I've been through there. I've been through there once. I drove down from New York to D.C. and D.C. all the way back to.
That's all the 95 corridor. Yeah, I know where you're at.
And it's a boring drive when you're. I forget what state it is, around Maryland or somewhere. The speed limit's only like 60, 65.
Virginia can be like that.
I'm used to going 75, and you about to pull your hair out because there's a cop sitting on the side of the road every 5 miles up there, and they're the guys they have the big plaques on the hood so you can see them.
Yeah, you can. Part of that is we always laugh about it. Virginia, it's I-81 in Virginia. We're going to the eastern side of the state. It's very beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
But when we're driving through Tennessee, it's easy all the way through Knoxville and even up until you cross the Tennessee border because there's a lot of things right on the highway. You hit a major city every 3 hours, park, stop, get out. If we need to buy something, there is once you're in Virginia, it's a scenic highway. There's nothing right on the highway. Not until you're almost to West Virginia.
Yeah.
And the trouble is that's day 2. You did 700 miles the day before. You're now with 800 or 900 miles of driving, and that's thank God for the in-car DVD players and stuff like that. And my daughters are old enough they're watching stuff that doesn't drive you nuts anymore.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the first drives they were big into Curious George. And it's William H. Macy's the narrator, but you start recognizing that, wow, I've heard William H. Macy's voice for the last, 7
times.
Yeah, exactly. Now it's like they got movies going. They're watching the Avengers back there.
I think driving between D.C. and Arkansas was a little bit. I don't know. We've done a lot of it at night, but I think it was a little bit more entertaining than the trip from Arkansas to Vegas.
Oh.
Because when you make the trip and you get past Oklahoma around the Amarillo and everything, it's like you're in a part of the world that's like shouldn't exist. It seems like there's nothing out there.
Flat.
There's no phone service or nothing. So if you're broke down, you can be in a world of hurt.
Yeah, just flat, straight, and not a whole lot around.
Yeah, a couple of cactuses.
Yeah, that's part of it. We laugh. We've done the trip enough. You start to remember and tag things mentally. Like you know which exits to get off of, which have good gas stations, which do you not. Yeah. We start, I think we always get off, when you're on I-40, we'll stop about 20 or 30 minutes shy of Memphis for our last, big gas ups and stuff like that, because it's gotten better, in 7 or 8 years, but, West Memphis truck stops, some of them are rough, especially, bringing little kids. It's nope. So make sure you're stopping before you get to Memphis. You don't get stuck in traffic, and that'll get you to Forest City or something like that if you have to stop again for the kids or whatever. So just to, spots like that. Or I know they finally, for a long time, we were sort of cursing it out. They had so much construction. They were doing a lot of construction on I-40 in West Memphis. Like you come off that bridge and you drop in and you got orange cones.
Because years ago, I-40, the worst part of it was voted Arkansas between, I think it's between Little Rock and, I'm thinking between Little Rock and Fort Smith. And the best part of it was between Little Rock and Memphis. I think that's the way the stats were. I may have those backwards, but I know those were two strips of the highway where the worst part and the best part there together.
The first 10 miles of 40 coming out of West Memphis was always, it's been under construction ever since I got here.
Yeah.
Now it's better, but there was definitely some rough times.
Packed full of 18-wheelers.
Yeah. We're always doing it on a Sunday, so you get those 18-wheelers kicking out Sunday afternoon to start making their runs, and you got to be comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we'll reach a stop. I want to ask you another quick question. Political science, right?
Yep.
Oh. Let me see. What's going to ask? How to keep this a general question. What do you explain political science? Just your opinion of it and why you chose it, and I don't know, just kind of the field, I guess, because it's some people are politicians, some people are
social media political experts. Yep.
Some people think they know, but as many years as you spent doing it, it's a whole lot different than somebody that just looks at a TV show.
Well, we laugh at it. There's actually a decent number. I would say there's half a dozen college professors that I know of anyway that do jiu-jitsu. And part of it is because you have to always keep learning, keep changing, and it's like cooking or a lot of music.
Yeah.
There's no point where you learn it and go, okay, I'm done. But I think the thing we do research on this. We do surveys with our students, and you see them nationally. People get really fired up about politics, but they don't know much.
Yeah.
And part of the fun for me is exposing new students to whether it's the American political system or world politics in some way. It's great when they sort of go, aha, I know this, I understand it in some better way. Because it's, as we said, people get really fired up about politics, but they don't know much. And it's it can be concerning.
Yeah.
Because, you see this on, I love my Facebook account, but sometimes it's just like, I gotta hate it once in a while too.
Oh yeah.
Because you watch these things just like take off like wildfire, and it's like you just want to cringe or whatever, and you wish there was like a 72-hour hold window sometimes, like
before you share a post.
Well, but before we think something's going on, we post it on social media, and it's completely wrong, but it's gone viral, and
you can't stop it once it's out there sometimes.
Exactly, but it's the thing I try and impress upon my students, especially in American politics, you don't really get to take it off. It doesn't understand it, don't understand it. You're surrounded by it whether you want to be or not. It's going to affect you. You're going to be better off if you understand even a little bit
why some things happen.
What's the bigger story. And that's what a lot of it is setting a bigger context, explaining, why does everybody hate both the Democrats and the Republicans? Well, let me tell you a story of how political parties have formed.
Oh, yeah.
So
between their evolution and how their opinions are allowed to change, and it's not always going to stay the same.
Well,
it's always evolution.
Oh, it is, but the people have evolved. The parties haven't. And what you're seeing, the way I explain it now is just the two political parties and people's attitudes have pulled apart. They're not what they used to be.
No.
There's a big generational gap. Like if you want to understand Democrats and Republicans who are like 60 and 70, they're kind of representative of what political parties are today. Whereas I see it in Arkansas. I see it everywhere. There's a huge difference in generations. I see, your grandparents, people our age, and, teenagers, 18, 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
They have all can be of the same political party. Doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. They have very different viewpoints on issues.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's something that's, you got to appreciate. You want them to understand a little bit of it. That's, normal, natural.
And some of it's not knowing just the history, because the world seems to change in increments between 15 and 20 years. And when you get, you talked about the people that are 60 and 70 years old, they can't believe what they see today, because I'm at that point sometimes. I can't believe what I see today from compared when I was 5 years old.
Oh yeah, it's
I'm like, this is really happening.
There's always all kinds of comments you get. August of every year. Here's what the incoming freshman class doesn't remember. I've caught myself, like, my kids at this point don't remember the Cold War. They weren't even a thought. Most of them were not even a thought. I'm getting to the point where I realize they have zero memory of, like, 9/11 now.
Yeah.
It
seems like a prehistoric event.
18 and 19-year-olds now are, they were literally 2, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a good chunk. I might have 2 or 3 non-traditionals in every class. They're more closer to my age, but that's true for all, like, especially like U.S. foreign policy. There's those clear epochs, eras, and I think it's true for everybody. Like, I don't remember Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon. He's the
Nixon
the war on drugs. That's where that started.
Yeah, Nixon would have been the president when I was born, but I don't remember him quitting when I was 2. Sorry, I'm not. I'm a political nerd, but not that much of a nerd.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember Reagan getting elected.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's pretty much when I remember politics. I was into it when I was a kid because I would watch the evening news. I was a Walter Cronkite guy.
Okay.
So I watched him a lot. And I would sit down and watch the news. My first exposure to presidents was like Iranian hostages and coming off of Ford and the Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And I, just watching that, I kind of always just followed along.
Oh yeah,
Whether they retain the information, it's a different story. But when you watch stuff like that, you're impressionable, so you have opinions. Of the evolution, I guess you'd say.
Oh yeah, and I think the election of Reagan is sort of one of the beginnings of sort of the next change, the next evolution.
Yeah.
That's where you could date a lot of stuff. Lyndon Johnson's presidency, Reagan's presidency, a lot of it with just whoever's president.
Even all the way up to Bush and then Clinton. Because I always thought it was unique to, was it Bush Sr.? He was just president for 4 years.
Yep.
And
I feel bad.
Everybody expected him to be 8-year president. It is, he's been the only 4-year president in the last, how many years? 20 years or something like that?
Depend. We're going to call Gerald Ford in there?
Yeah.
But yeah.
He's the only 4-year president since Ford.
I feel bad. It's like, you talk, when I teach American government, it's basically I get 30 hours a week or 30 hours a semester to explain everything. And I think I call them Bush 41 and Bush 43. So so you don't get the weird, the numbers just make it faster, but he does get overlooked, Mm-hmm. He gets, you get the first person.
He was also vice president, which, he was there 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
Actually,
he was in the White
12.
House. Yeah. 12 full years. That's.
But you'd expect a guy like that to go on for another 4.
Well, yeah. If the election would have been earlier, or the economy hadn't gone as far south as it did, he probably would have.
Uh-huh.
So we sort of, he's a cautionary tale of how foreign policy can help you out, but many times what's happening at home can trump that. Because he was very popular after the first Persian Gulf War.
And he had a lot of awards, and he was a decorated president.
Oh yeah, he was.
Look at his
when you talk
record.
It's
impressive.
Head of the CIA, ambassador to China. Yeah, as you said, 8 years of vice president. He'd really put a lot into government service. But his foreign policy that's a rough era.
Yeah.
because you've got the end of, the Soviet Union breaks up. You're trying to negotiate, what do you do? We got to get rid of 30,000 nuclear weapons in countries which
and
just
more Middle Eastern.
it's like Kazakhstan suddenly becomes independent in 1991. It's a former Soviet republic. That's the heart of the Soviet space program. It's the heart of their nuclear weapons program. And all of a sudden, you've got a country that's been around literally a day. And oh, by the way, there's 10,000 nuclear weapons left behind. He's like, we got to make sure to secure them. We'll pay the bill, but make sure to get them back to Russia or get them dismantled. But at the end, what got him was domestic stuff. You had, some banks fail. There was a big savings and loan crisis. Inflation started, things of that nature. And the foreign policy stuff, while great, just didn't help him get reelected.
No.
So.
A lot of attention probably taken off foreign policy from that moment on.
Oh yeah. Once you're victorious and in the grand scheme of warfare, it was relatively bloodless from the American perspective. I mean, yeah, everybody's cheering. It looked great. But there wasn't as much stuff. Everybody says, okay, congratulations, we won. What about jobs?
Where do we go?
Jobs,
Where do we go from
inflation,
here?
gas prices, stuff like that. So.
Now, what do you think about, comparatively to today's time, a little bit more focus on foreign policies as far as friction between us and Korea and,
Well, that's part of it. This is the 2017 conversation that's been happening for 30 years. Clinton struggled to get North Korea with the dad.
Because it seems to be the focus, but
Bush,
it's
Bush
always
40,
been something that's
Bush
there.
43 and Obama, and now the current president. They've always North Korea. This is North Korean diplomacy 101.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a dispute. We're going to talk badly about each other. We're going to run, threaten, fire and brimstone on one another.
Like two kids on the playground pushing each other.
But then we're going to chill out.
Yeah.
We're going to come to an agreement quietly. In some ways, this is just the current version. And I think one thing that may be a little bit different is I think this is the social media era.
Yeah.
As I said, these have been happening since the Clinton era, but we don't have tweets and Facebook and all that other stuff to amplify things that have been going on for 30 years. You're something more.
And you have a celebrity type as a president, where the guy in Korea, he's a fan of celebrities.
Yes,
it's a little bit of different dynamic.
It is a very different dynamic. That's yeah. Part of it is I teach world politics a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff about Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, which, if you know anything about Asia, might give you pause. For instance, he's the third-born male child who's become leader of the country.
Yeah.
Now, in many foreign cultures, first-born male child is on a pedestal. Second and third are, fighting for table scraps. All of first and second, his two brothers, one's dead. He was assassinated, poisoned somewhere in Southeast Asia. They think Kim Jong-un had him poisoned, but it's such an unusual cultural situation. It makes people sort of pause and go, "What's going on here?" And the difference, he's only the third ruler of North Korea.
Wow.
There was basically think of his grandfather, his father, and now him. The difference is the grandfather had Kim Jong-il, the current president's father. He was in the family business. He was at all the meetings. He was part of the discussions for so long that there was no sort of question who was in charge. This was Kim Jong-un was much more isolated. He wasn't. It was very late. Basically, Kim Jong-il was taking meetings for 20 years along with his dad, 10 years, whatever. Un was only doing it in the last 6 months or a year. And that makes people go sort of pause, does he know the system? And one of the issues is you've got they have to guess at his age, but he's like 31, 32, and
That's it?
yeah. I always joke about when I see his age go by. Yeah, he's leader of a country, and I'm teaching college in Arkansas.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, you got talk about generational problems. Most of his advisors are guys in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who've been working for the government for their entire adult lives.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always this sort of, how will they react to this, to somebody that young coming in?
Basically a kid.
Yeah, he's been in the ruler now like 4 or 5 years, so it's, imagine that conversation. You've got 10 70-year-old generals, and a 28-year-old who's just shown up on the scene is now in charge.
Yeah.
People, we don't know much, but people, it's an unusual situation. You don't see it very often. So that's sort of that's what I talk about. You got to understand that bigger context.
Yeah.
And I think it's true for anything and everything, whether it's world politics, American politics. Hey, jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
you gotta understand, where
you're
and
coming from and where you're going.
yeah, exactly. When you start talking about 10th planet language, you got to understand where, got to understand where, why, and how it came from. If you do, you're going to be able to know it, understand it, and be able to apply it or discuss it better.
Mm-hmm.
I joke with it when I teach these introductory lessons. Teaching jiu-jitsu is like teaching a foreign language.
Yeah.
I find myself because that's, what do we mean by guard?
Yeah.
What do you mean by pass? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, because I get so used to just knowing the terms when somebody new comes in and you just kind of spout them off and you're like, oh, I need to explain what the guard is.
Yes, that's why we do introductory lessons whenever possible.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody has it helps. We do them for kickboxing too, just to get more people more comfortable with it. Because it is like you jump into a class of 12 or 14 people.
Like, slip the jab there. No, what do you mean? I don't know what you mean by slip.
Which one's my jab?
Yeah.
Are you left-handed or right-handed?
Yeah.
Starts the question, but explaining the language. What do we mean by a guard pass? What do we mean by all those? You get so used to it, especially like this camp. We're going to be. There might be 50 people there, a couple 100 years of experience on the mats. You're going to have a pretty, everybody speaks that foreign language pretty well by now.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm
excited to learn, see how much I can retain, and, I'm going to take a lot of notes, or plan on taking a lot of notes. Sometimes when you get in there, it's a little bit different.
I'm really interested. The biggest reason I'm going is this will be my first time I am assuming, fingers crossed, I'm seeing guys get their black belts.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first time I've made it up and I get to see that in our association. So I'm like, because we're getting
excited for that.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of great guys in our association.
Mm-hmm.
This is sort of the big
talent.
Oh, yeah.
Getting talent, too.
Oh, yeah. We were talking about this, I think, between now and this time next year, I think our association is really taking off at the top. Because I think it's, Master Dring's he's getting to that point where he's had this association, these organizations now going for about a decade.
Yeah.
And you just watching that.
And there's a lot happening.
Oh, yeah.
10 years.
So, but you're getting to those first guys when he was,
first
starting out. They've spread out, and I think it really actually started with Caleb getting his black belt. Now, I'm trying to remember if that was 2 years ago.
I think so.
About 2 years ago, but then last year he started. You had a couple more get theirs, but there's this wall of brown belts in our association who are just starting to line up.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you're wondering.
It's like the lining of the guards.
Oh yeah.
And you see a lot of potential when you see everybody together.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's the funny thing for me is that these things, I realize how far I've come. Mm-hmm. Like when you line up those first classes, you're a white belt.
Yeah.
And there's a sea of people in front of you, and you see a whole row after row of the backs of heads.
Now you're in the middle, and you see the guys ahead and the guys behind you, and you're like, man, this is nice, because it's still people chasing that goal.
Oh yeah, but it's like you just you're starting to move up. We went. What month was it? I think it was April. The association does the gi camp, the 1 day big gi seminar, and that was the one that I had just gotten my purple. I mean, it was purple belt for about 2 months. But that was the first real big. There was probably 40 people in the gi there, but I almost there was like 2 purple belts.
Oh yeah.
And I'm looking behind me, and there's just a sea of. Oh, there was a small army of brown and black in front of me, but it's. I think it was me, Cora, and that was about rush hour. But there's something when you could turn around and you look back and you realize when you move through those lines how long, how far. You gotta, don't dwell on it, but you gotta take that point to really appreciate that journey. Where there's a lot of people who started who, for whatever reason, haven't continued. Don't life gets in the way or whatever it might be. But it's like it's great, and that's why I'm interested.
Yeah, that's what we tell everybody. You start off as a white belt. What's a black belt? That's a white belt. Never gave up. You have our bumps along the way, but
you embrace that.
Moving.
Yeah, you embrace that grind and keep moving and keep working.
Man, I appreciate you coming down and talking before we head up to camp and start sweating together and.
Gotta fight traffic.
Choke each other. Yeah.
How bad's Fort Smith traffic on a Friday afternoon?
Oh shoot, it can be crazy.
All right, that wraps up the interview with Chris Housenick. We went on the chat for a bit after that, but you guys don't need to hear all that. So we decided to end it right there. And we went on to do some awesome training over the weekend. We went 10, 12 plus hours of training jiu-jitsu under several different black belts from our team. Witnessed a couple of black belt promotions from Mike Page and Stephen Gorley. And congrats to those guys. Special shout out to them. If you guys haven't, make sure you follow my Facebook page at Mega Talks. Also, check out the Instagram, Mega Talks. That's one word. Catch us on Twitter, CT at Mega Talks. And stay tuned to those pages right there, and you'll be updated on which guest I have coming up next. And I'll catch you guys later. I'm out of here.